Tony Robbins,
The legend himself.
65 plus years old, owner of over 100 companies doing, what, $12 billion annually?
Insane numbers.
He's coached presidents, he's coached Andre Agassi, Mike Tyson, Princess Diana, but more importantly for this conversation, he is a strategist of human emotion.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today. Usually we'll take a stack of articles or a book and break it down.
Right.
But today we're analyzing a collision.
That is a very evocative way to put it, and entirely accurate.
We have a transcript here of a meeting that, quite frankly, feels like watching two different species of apex predator trying to figure each other out. On one side of the table, you have Alex Hormozi.
The modern archetype of the business scaler, just, the definition of it.
Exactly. He's 36 years old. He is intensely analytical, disciplined to the point of being, well, robotic.
Yeah.
And he's built this massive portfolio.
He's the guy who looks at a spreadsheet and sees the matrix.
Yes. He's wearing the flannel. He's got the nose strip on. He is pure, unadulterated efficiency.
And then on the other side, you have the veteran, the titan, Tony Robbins.
The legend himself.
65 plus years old, owner of over 100 companies doing, what, $12 billion annually?
Insane numbers.
He's coached presidents, he's coached Andre Agassi, Mike Tyson, Princess Diana, but more importantly for this conversation, he is a strategist of human emotion.
And that is where the friction is, because the source material we're covering today is technically an interview Alex is conducting with Tony.
Right.
But, and here's the twist, it stops being an interview about 5 minutes in. It turns into an intervention.
It really does. It becomes a live diagnostic session right there on camera.
So the mission for this deep dive is to dissect this intervention, because the core conflict is something I think a lot of us feel, even if we aren't centimillionaires.
Absolutely.
Alex has mastered what Tony calls the science of achievement. He's got the money, the body, the status. He's won the game. But he admits, openly and vulnerably, that he is failing at the art of fulfillment.
He uses the word apathy.
Yeah. He says he has an apathy issue. He's grinding, but he's numb. So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt like you're just checking all the boxes, getting the promotion, hitting the gym, saving the money, but you still wake up feeling like you're just, I don't know, executing a software program,
then you need to listen to this. Because what we're going to explore is the difference between push motivation, which runs out, and pull motivation, which is, well, it's infinite. We're going to look at the biology of language, identity shifting, and we're even going to get into some incredibly high-level asset allocation strategy that Tony just sort of drops right in the middle of this therapy session.
It is a wild ride. So let's unpack this. We have to start with the trap. Section 1 of our notes here highlights Alex's confession. He opens up pretty early in the conversation and admits that he operates primarily out of duty.
And that word is the key to the whole lock: duty.
He tells this story about when he was 20 years old. He's reading all these positive psychology books, right?
The whole shelf.
The whole 9 yards. He's trying to feel happy. He's doing the gratitude journals, the affirmations, all of it.
Yeah.
And nothing is working. He
Yeah.
feels broken. So in a moment of what sounds like frustration and just defiance, he adopts a mantra.
Fuck happiness.
Yeah, fuck happiness. He replaces it with, I will be useful.
Which sounds noble on the surface, doesn't it?
Ah.
I will be useful. It sounds stoic. It sounds like the high road. It sounds like Marcus Aurelius or something.
Right. It feels like you're taking the burden on your shoulders for the good of the tribe.
Exactly. But what Tony picks up on immediately is that Alex has essentially framed his entire existence as an obligation.
An obligation.
He creates success because he doesn't know what else to do. It's not joy. It's a default setting. He has turned his life into a series of tasks to be completed to prove he's useful.
There's this microcosm he shares about the fitness industry that I found fascinating. He got into fitness because he loved it, right? He loved the gym. He loved the iron.
The passion was there.
The passion was there. But then the business became billing, sales, cleaning toilets, hiring, firing.
The mechanics.
The mechanics. And he says something really sad. He says that after the 1,000th transformation story, someone losing 100 pounds, he felt nothing.
That is a terrifying admission.
He was just like, yeah, of course you lost weight. You stopped eating garbage. The magic was just gone.
That is the duty trap in its purest form. When you turn your passion into a process and you strip away the emotional connection, you're left with just the gears turning.
And you can get very rich on mechanics. Alex is proof of that.
Oh, absolutely. but you can't get fulfilled on them. You become a mechanic of your own life.
So Tony hears this, and he doesn't pat Alex on the back. He doesn't say, good job on the discipline. He diagnoses him. He calls it the astronaut syndrome.
This is such a powerful analogy. Tony has worked with actual astronauts, you know, the guys who went to the moon during the Apollo mission.
Right.
And he breaks down their psychological journey. I mean, think about the selection process.
It's brutal, just insane.
You beat out thousands of people. You have to be the best of the best. You have to have nerves of steel. You ride a rocket built by the lowest bidder.
Which is a detail that always freaks me out.
You fly through the void. You walk on the moon. You look back at that little blue marble. You have the most profound spiritual experience a human being can possibly have. You are literally standing on another world.
The peak experience. The ultimate peak.
And then you come back. You get the ticker tape parade. You shake the president's hand, and then it's Tuesday.
And you have to take out the trash.
Exactly. And the question becomes, what the fuck do you do after you've walked on the moon?
Yeah. How do you top that? How could you?
You can't. And Tony points out that many of these guys became alcoholics or fell into deep depression because their brain was wired for this massive adventure, and nothing on Earth could match the signal strength of walking on the moon.
So normal life just felt like gray static.
Completely. And he applies this to Alex. He's saying, Alex, you're 36. You've already walked on the moon.
In a business sense.
In the business sense. You've won the game. You have the hundreds of millions. But because you've won, you're now sitting in the apathy of, what now?
But he adds a layer to it.
He does. He says Alex has hypnotized himself. By saying, fuck happiness and equating success with pain, he has literally trained his brain to filter out joy.
He believes that if he isn't suffering, he isn't working.
And that's the duty versus opportunity distinction. Tony argues that duty is a linguistic trap.
A trap.
It is. If you believe that you have to succeed first and then you'll enjoy life later, you are deluded. That's Tony's stance. He says the only thing that makes us feel alive is growth.
Right.
But if you view your work as a duty, you're constantly in a state of resistance. You're pushing a boulder up a hill every single day. Tony tries to reframe this for Alex from duty to opportunity.
He says rich and poor is not money. Rich and poor is feeling fully alive.
Precisely. You can be a billionaire and be emotionally impoverished if you are just managing stress. If you're just a highly paid janitor of your own problems, you are poor. And Alex, for all his success, was emotionally poor.
This leads us right into the mechanics of how we fix this. Because Tony doesn't just say, cheer up, he breaks down the engine. This is section 2, push versus pull motivation. I love this distinction because I think I've been running on push my whole life.
I think most high achievers do. It's the default operating system of the Western world.
So define them for us. What is the difference between push and pull?
Okay, so push motivation is willpower. It's I have to do this. It's if I don't do this, I'm a failure. It's driven by obligation or fear.
Okay.
And it works. Don't get me wrong, it works. It gets you to the gym, it gets you to finish the report. But it is a finite resource. It burns metabolic fuel. Eventually, you run out of push.
It's like a battery. It drains.
Exactly. And Tony looks at Alex and says, brother, you have reached the limit of where push can take you. Alex is exhausted. Not physically, but spiritually.
And pull.
Pull motivation is when there's something outside of yourself, a mission, a person, a cause, that is so compelling it just drags you out of bed.
Right.
You don't have to do it. You get to do it. It's not draining energy. It's generating energy. It feels like you're being drawn forward by a giant magnet.
It's the difference between rowing a boat and putting up a sail.
That's a great way to put it. That's perfect. With push, you are rowing against the current every day. With pull, the wind is at your back.
So how do you get that?
To access pull motivation, Tony introduces the concept of the moonshot.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because when I hear charity or giving back, I usually think, okay, write a check.
Right.
But Tony says that writing checks is boring. It doesn't trigger the pull.
Exactly. And Alex admits that. He says he wrote $1 million checks and filled nothing.
Nothing. Can you imagine writing a check for $1 million and feeling indifferent?
It's because there was no engagement. It was just a transaction. So Tony shares his own case study, the billion meals.
This story is wild. So Tony had been feeding people for 37 years, right? He hit 42 million meals, which is incredible.
It's an amazing achievement. But he admits to Alex that he was numb to it. He was associated to the number, meaning it was just a stat on a scoreboard. He wasn't feeling the impact anymore.
Wow.
So he decided he needed to break his own psychology. He set a goal to feed 100 million people in 1 year and 1 billion in 10 years.
And the key here was that he didn't know how to do it.
Exactly. That is the definition of a moonshot. It has to be unreasonable. If you know how to do it, it's just management. If you don't know how to do it, it's an adventure. It forced him to strategize differently, to partner differently. It forced him to evolve.
And then he escalated it. He went to 100 billion meals. And this is where we get the story that I think really cracked Alex's shell a bit, the strike force story.
The Sudan operation. This is where it goes from charity to like an action movie.
Yeah. Can you walk us through that? Because that did not sound like typical philanthropy.
It really does sound like a script. So Tony is meeting with the head of the World Food Program, helping to organize this 100 billion meal challenge. And he learns about a situation in Sudan.
Okay.
You have rebels starving out 1 million people. They're literally killing the UN drivers who try to bring food in. It's a death zone.
So the standard charity model says, we can't go in, it's too dangerous, the bureaucracy just freezes.
Correct. But Tony treats it like a business problem or a war problem. He says, I'm funding a private operation. He doesn't wait for permission. He gets military contractors. He charters C-130 cargo planes.
These are massive military transport aircraft.
Huge. And he uses drones for surveillance.
Yeah.
And they start airdropping food directly to the people, bypassing the rebels. They delivered 22,000 meals in a month and saved these people who were literally days away from death.
See, that is pull.
That is adventure.
He wasn't just signing a check and walking away. He was innovating. He was solving a logistical puzzle that involved life and death. He was using his strategic brain to outmaneuver warlords.
And that is the lesson for the listener. If your giving back feels like a chore, you're doing it wrong. You need to find a way to make it a creative challenge.
A puzzle.
A puzzle. Tony didn't get fulfilled by the charity. He got fulfilled by the innovation applied to the charity. He made the problem big enough to matter.
Which brings us to the tool set. How do we actually change our brain to feel that excitement? Because Alex is sitting there listening to this, but he's still stuck in his head.
Right.
Section 3 is all about the physics of language, or what Tony calls transformational vocabulary.
This is one of Tony's oldest and most potent teachings. The premise is so simple. Words are not just descriptors of reality. They are the architects of reality.
Words change your biochemistry.
They literally do. He gives this hilarious example of the nutritious versus delicious snack.
I love this one.
Right. If I offer you a nutritious snack, your brain goes, ugh. Cardboard, kale, sawdust. Your biochemistry actually prepares for something bland. You might even grimace slightly.
I can feel my stomach tightening just thinking about it.
Yeah. But if I say, I have this delicious, sensual, rich snack, your salivation glands trigger. Your stomach prepares for digestion. The object, the snack itself, hasn't changed. The label changed the biological response.
And he applies this to emotions. There's this story about the business partners, the IRS story. I think this is the most practical example in the whole talk.
It's a perfect experiment.
Yeah.
So Tony is in his 30s. He's in a negotiation with 2 partners. The negotiation goes south. The other side tries to screw them over.
Okay, so the scenario is the same for everyone. Bad deal, betrayal, money on the line.
Yes. The stimulus is identical. But look at the response. Partner A is enraged. He's furious. He wants to kill the other guys. His face is red. His veins are popping. He's vibrating with rage.
Tony says he was pissed off and angry. So still intense, but a step down.
A step down, exactly. But Partner B is merely annoyed or peeved.
Peeved? Who gets peeved in a multi-million-dollar screw-over? It sounds so British.
It sounds passive. But here is the insight. Tony asks Partner B, why aren't you angry? And Partner B says, if I get angry, the other guy wins. If I get angry, I lose my clarity. Meanwhile, Partner A thinks, if I get angry, I get powerful.
So Partner A uses anger as a fuel, but it burns him up. Partner B uses annoyed to keep his cool and win the deal.
Exactly. The words they habitually used created their emotional home. If you constantly use intense words, you feel intense pain. If your go-to word for traffic is disaster, you are living in a disaster every rush hour.
Whereas if your go-to word is delay, you are just living in a delay.
It's a completely different emotional reality.
Tony shares a personal one about his mother.
Oh, this was heartbreaking, but also funny in a very dark way.
She used the word humiliated.
For everything. If he missed a phone call,
Yeah?
she was humiliated. If the store was out of milk, humiliated. That means she lived her entire life in a state of humiliation because that was the label she slapped on every single problem.
And this brings it back to Alex. Because Alex has a mantra, fuck happiness, and he talks about suffering. He actually geeks out on the etymology, saying passion comes from the Latin passio, which means suffering.
Which creates a permission structure for him to be miserable.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
If passion equals suffering, then to be passionate about his business, he must suffer. Becomes a logic loop. Tony looks at him and says, "Stop it, you're hypnotizing yourself." He tells him to change the mantra from fuck happiness to fuck suffering.
Fuck suffering. I like that.
Suffering is an option. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice. It's the story we tell ourselves about the pain.
So we had the language trap, but deeper than language is identity. Section 4. This is where Tony really plays therapist. He notices a split in Alex.
He calls it the head versus heart conflict. He observes that Alex is hyper-analytical. His brain reduces things. That's what analysis is, breaking things down, comparing them, finding the flaw. Is it organic? Is it worth the ROI? Is it efficient?
But the heart magnifies.
The heart magnifies. It makes the small things big. A smile, a moment with your wife, a sunset. Tony points out that when Alex talks about his wife, his face changes. He smiles. He laughs. He looks like a different person.
So Tony suggests, and I love this, naming the personas. Just like in a video game, you have different characters.
It's a dissociation technique. If you are just Alex, then you are a mess of contradictions. But if you separate them, you can manage them. So they named the first one Analytical Alex.
That's the grinder, the one who suffers, the protector, the guy in the tank top staring at the spreadsheet.
And then Hormozi himself suggests the name for the other one, Anabolic Alex.
Anabolic Alex, that is so good. Anabolic means building up, growth, energy.
Precisely. Anabolic Alex is the one who smiles, who loves his wife, who has energy, who is on fire.
And the strategy here is selection. Tony compares it to a relationship. In the beginning of a relationship, we select the part of us that wants to give joy.
Right. When you're courting someone, you are selecting your best self. You're bringing flowers, you're not keeping score, but later you might select the part that keeps score, the part that says, I did the dishes last time, it's your turn.
Right.
The transactional self.
The transactional self. And Tony tells Alex, you need to consciously select Anabolic Alex to run your life. Because right now, Analytical Alex is the CEO.
Yeah, Analytical Alex is a great wartime general, but he is a terrible peacetime leader.
What a great line. He helped Alex survive his past, but now he is preventing his happiness.
That is a massive takeaway for anyone listening. Who is running your internal meeting right now? Is it the scared protector or the one who actually enjoys the ride? Okay, we're going to pivot hard here because this is a conversation between two wealthy guys, so eventually they start talking shop.
Of course.
And Section 5 is a technical interlude on the science of wealth. And honestly, even though this is the deep dive on psychology, this part is gold if you're interested in finance. Tony pivots because he acknowledges that while fulfillment is an art, money is a science. There are rules. If you follow the rules, you win. If you don't, you lose.
He drops some stats that blew my mind. He compares private equity returns to the S&P 500 over the last 39 years.
This is the data. The S&P 500 averaged about 9% compounded, which is good. If you invest $1 million, over the time horizon he used, let's say 35 to 40 years, you end up with about $28 million.
Not bad at all. That's a great retirement. No complaints there.
Not at all. But then he looks at average private equity returns, not the best, just the average. They average 15.7%.
That doesn't sound like a huge difference, you know? 9% minus you 15.7%, it's not even double.
That's the trick of compounding. It's the eighth wonder of the world, right? Over that same time horizon, that $1 million in private equity becomes $293 million.
Whoa. Stop. Say that again. 28 million versus
$293 million.
That is a 10x difference.
That is a 10x difference.
That is insane.
That is the cost of access. And that is the problem Tony highlights. Access. The best funds, like Vista Equity, which he mentions, are usually closed. You can't just call them up and say, here's my $5,000. You need millions just to knock on the door.
But Tony shares a strategy, the general partnership strategy. What is that?
Okay, this is a bit complex, but it's crucial. Usually when you invest in a fund, you are a limited partner, an LP. You give them money, they invest it, they take a fee, and give you the rest.
Standard investor.
Standard. But Tony met a sophisticated investor who said, don't be an LP. Own a piece of the general partner, the GP. The GP is the company that runs the fund, the company that collects the management fees.
The famous 2 and 20.
Exactly. The 2% management fee and 20% of the profits. If you own the GP, you get a cut of the fees and the profits. You are owning the casino, not just playing at the table. Even if the market is flat, you are getting paid management fees.
And he mentioned some legislation here, right? Because normally only the super rich can do this.
Yes, he mentions a bill passed around the time of the recording that is designed to allow people to test into accredited investor status. Previously, you needed $1 million net worth to get into these deals.
Right.
The new logic is, if you are smart enough to understand the risk, why should you be barred just because you aren't rich yet?
That is a game changer for democratization. It means knowledge becomes the currency, not just capital.
Exactly. But Tony brings it back to the core conflict. He warns Alex about asset allocation. He says business owners often fail because they put all their eggs in their own business basket.
Control bias.
Right. I control my business, so it's safe. Tony says you need two businesses, the one you run and the investment business that compounds passively.
So they're separate entities.
Completely. Because if your main business hits a COVID moment or AI disrupts it, your investment business saves you.
So we have the mindset, we have the mechanics, we have the money, now we need the resolution. Section 6. Tony pushes Alex to construct a new moonshot, one that actually wakes up anabolic Alex.
And this is fascinating to watch unfold. Alex struggles at first. He admits again, writing checks makes me feel nothing. He tried doing it selfishly to feel good, and when it didn't work, he felt worse.
But then he finds a spark.
He identifies the only thing he feels emotionally connected to: teaching young men how to provide for themselves and their families. Helping them escape survival mode.
Because that's his story.
Is his escape. He recalls the moment he had $100,000 in the bank. He says it was the biggest shift in his life, moving from survival to safety. He felt rich then, perhaps more than he does now, with hundreds of millions.
Wow.
That's a powerful statement.
So they start brainstorming, and Tony, being the strategist, pushes for a specific number. You can't just say, I want to help men.
Right. A moonshot needs a target. It needs to be measurable. They settle on 100,000 men reaching a net worth of $100,000.
That is such a cool goal.
It's brilliant. Think about the ripple effect. That represents $10 billion in actual wealth created for the next generation.
And Alex explains why $100K matters. He says Gen Z feels like the system is broken. Inflation, housing prices, they feel like victims.
Right.
If you get a kid to $100K net worth, you validate capitalism for him. You turn him from a victim into an owner.
It shifts his identity. And Tony loves this. He commits on the spot to helping Alex for free, providing educational materials. But notice the shift in energy. By the end of this segment, Alex isn't talking about duty. He isn't talking about suffering.
He's talking about impact.
He's talking about impact. He's talking about validating a system he believes in. The pull engine has started.
It's a real-time transformation. So let's bring this home. What does this all mean? We've watched a billionaire strategist dismantle the limiting beliefs of a multimillionaire.
We've seen that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. That's the headline. You can win the game and still lose your life.
And we learn that you cannot think your way to happiness.
No. That's analytical Alex. That's the reducer. You have to feel your way there. You need anabolic Alex. You need connection. You need a moonshot that scares you a little bit.
And check your vocabulary. I'm definitely going to stop using the word disaster for minor inconveniences.
Be careful with annoyed versus enraged. It determines who wins.
So here's the final provocative thought for our listener. We want you to try something. Tony challenged Alex to transcend the trance, to stop hypnotizing himself with the story of suffering.
I want you to ask yourself this. If you met your anabolic self, the version of you that is the most alive, the most energetic, the one who smiles the most, would they recognize the person running your life today?
Oof, that's a heavy question.
It is. And if the answer is no, how do you fire your current internal manager and rehire the one who knows how to smile? Because that guy is the one who will actually get you to the moon.
And maybe even enjoy the view when you get there. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.